Is the CRJ-200 terrible? Is the ERJ-170 average? Are regional jets that bad? Join me as we answer all those questions as we sample 2 American Eagle products on our way to Oshkosh 2023. This is going to be a blast, and I'm super excited for this. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome to Tulsa International Airport, everybody. Today we're going to be sampling American Airlines and 2 of their subsidiaries, Envoy and Air Wisconsin. I'm really eager to see what these regional jets are all about and really excited to gain a better understanding of what it's like to fly to a small airport in the United States. With that said, welcome to Tulsa International Airport. TUL is one of the nicest mid-sized airports in the United States, and I highly recommend checking out the videos on my channel for a better understanding. That said, here's our first aircraft for today's flight. It's November 764 Juliet November, a 14-year-old American Eagle ERJ-170. I'm really eager to see what this is all about, as I've never been on an American E170 and it should be quite fun, so let's just go ahead and get on board, everybody. Welcome to seat 19A, everybody. As you can see, we have a beautiful sunrise here, and this is going to be quite a pleasant flight, so let's just go ahead and taxi out to the runway for today's departure. Alrighty, everybody, so welcome up here to our cruising altitude. So let's just go ahead and do a little bit of talking about the concepts here, the product, and we'll also talk about the route as well. So once again, this is November 764 Delta November, which is a 14-year-old ERJ-170 delivered to Envoy in 2021. For the first 9 years of this aircraft's life, it flew for British Airways City Flyer, which is really cool, delivered in 2010, and that was quite fun for them. So glad that they were able to utilize this aircraft to its fullest potential. This is one of the first Envoy ERJ-170s, as the number 760 through 766 were the first 6 delivered back in 2021. It's also worth noting that November 760 My Quebec is the Envoy Retro ERJ-170, so that's quite fascinating as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the product for these ERJ-170s. We asked the question, are these planes average? I would say they're a little above average. There's some adequate legroom to be had here, along with some fairly comfortable padding considering that this is a regional jet, and I'm truly pretty impressed with it, and it definitely got the job done for this hour and 15-minute flight over to Chicago O'Hare. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and talk about this route from Tulsa to Chicago O'Hare. American Airlines offers this 3 times a day at this current moment, and United can be seen offering this anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day depending on the season. That's good to make Chicago O'Hare the 6th busiest destination typically at Tulsa International Airport, with some inconsistencies, as right now it's hovering a little under 100,000 annual passengers, which is quite helpful. Once again, this is a really cool segment and a really pivotal link to get cities like Tulsa over to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and that's really helpful in this particular case. It's also really cool to note that these ERJ-170 aircraft do have Wi-Fi, and it works rather well. So that's really cool, as they'll continue to implement other features like live TV, but they did have free entertainment on this particular day, so that was quite helpful. Do keep in mind that this was filmed in July of 2023. Anyway, though, the cabin is quite nice. The lavatories are also spacious too, and you can definitely get that vibe that it's a really interesting kind of hybrid product with some pieces remaining from the European concept, but also American Airlines putting their own twist on it as well. But personally, I think it's really awesome that American is gaining more of these ERJ-170s in their fleet. It's really awesome to see these larger aircraft operating in places like Tulsa, and it's going to be exciting to see where it goes from here. As we've known, they have this 50-seat aircraft over time, including the ERJ-145s that now fly exclusively for Piedmont Airlines, and we also have what we're going to see next, the Air Wisconsin CRJ-200s. Once again, the product is really nice here with adequate legroom, some solid padding, and other amenities that you can't go along with, and these aircraft are really perfect for that hour to 2 hour flight range. They are quite wonderful, and once again, I really enjoyed my experience. The views that were also tremendous on this flight. We saw a bunch of really awesome views from the various airports on the ground. We saw some thunderstorms out there as well, and overall just great. Also, I do want to recommend, if you're ever wondering what side to sit on the plane, if you want the sun at your back, definitely use suncalc.net. It's a great resource to figure out where the sun's going to illuminate the wing, and it makes the photos just that much better, and you also don't get the sun blast in your face when you're flying too. But anyway, just keep the sun behind your back and you'll be good to go. With that said, this was an awesome flight, so let's just go ahead and get into Chicago, everybody. So we're going to be descending and landing over here on, I believe we were on the south side on this day. So once again, it's always an awesome approach into O'Hare. On this particular day, it was a little hazy, so we couldn't see quite as much as what we wanted to, but hey, we still made the most of the situation, and that's where we are today. With that being said, let's go ahead and touch down, everybody, and I'll give you the little rundown on this layover, and then the next flight we'll jump into the Air Wisconsin CRJ-200 and also talk briefly about why these flights were selected for this itinerary. Let's go ahead and touch down, everyone. And welcome to Chicago O'Hare International Airport, everybody. As we know, Chicago O'Hare feels giant at times, but in this particular case, it didn't quite feel as big as my connection was rather simple. So we're going to be going from ERJ-170 over to the Air Wisconsin CRJ gates, which are actually the Gulf gates at Chicago O'Hare. This is quite easy, just a few minute walk. I think I had about an hour and a half layover, so no doubt plenty of time to get this accomplished, and it was quite a vibe to say the least. That will take us on to our next aircraft today, and no, it is not the Air Wisconsin retro livery, but it is an Air Wisconsin CRJ-200. This aircraft's November 416 Alpha Whiskey, and this aircraft is about 22 years old. This is going to be quite a pleasant flight here, as I'm eager to see what the CRJ-200 is about. I haven't flown on one of these aircraft since 2019, so I'm really eager to see what this is all about, and I hope all of you are as well. I was also able to get some spotting done in Chicago during this layover, so that was definitely an added benefit, but regardless, let's just go ahead and get on board and see what it's all about here as we are settled into seat number 12A. So welcome aboard, everybody, and as you can see here, it is quite an awesome vibe. The seats are definitely a little bit tighter, and particularly the overhead cabin is much lower, but that's okay. And you know, these aircraft definitely serve their purpose. This is only going to be about a 15-minute flight. I'm not even joking, 15-20 minutes. So it's going to go really quick. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and taxi off for departure, and I'll talk about it real quick during the cruise, what you can expect. With that said, let's go ahead and take off, everyone. Alrighty, everybody, so welcome to our cruising altitude here. So again, this is a very quick flight, but a very pivotal one, as I'll go ahead and talk about. So let's start with the Chicago O'Hare to Appleton, Wisconsin route. So it's interesting to note a couple factors. Number one, there are some surrounding airports that do have a factor on how this route is structured. You have the Green Bay Airport, which is to the northeast of Appleton, and then you also have Milwaukee Airport, which is probably 2.5 hours southeast or so. So you do have some surrounding airports that are large and have a presence, but obviously passengers are needing a connecting opportunity from a very close airport, very close hub rather. Chicago's within 4 hours, I believe, of Appleton. So with that being said, obviously having connection there despite the short flight time is important. So that's where this flight comes into play. This is the #1 ranked route here by far at Appleton Airport. As between American and United, they carry over 130,000 annual passengers on this service. And then the next one's Minneapolis, and that's not even 60,000. So it really goes to show how prominent this route is at Appleton, Wisconsin. So it is a really cool cool one, and again, very essential to get those connecting passengers on, whether they're flying domestically, internationally, or just through Chicago for business or whatever. So yeah, it's really cool to see what they've been able to do with this service. But it's literally a shuttle, so it's kind of like a bus. 15 minutes, it goes really quick. It takes longer to taxi out of Chicago, get on the ramp and all that, and take off than it does to actually cruise this flight and land. So it is kind of funny that some of these shorter routes like this, you know, we've reviewed a couple of them in the past, but at the same time, it's not like a prop flight, for example, like Pacific Coastal from Victoria to Vancouver. It's one of those flights that is more structured essentially to obviously get passengers to their connecting airport to go on to their connecting destination. So it is kind of cool to think about it, just considering how short this one is, and it still carries over 100,000 passengers a year. It's busier than Tulsa to Chicago, for example. I mean, that's just crazy to think about. So anyway, with that said, though, I just thought that was kind of fascinating on this capacity. But yeah, it's just all CRJ-200s. They go back and forth every hour for both airlines, and yeah, it's quite an interesting one. So that's quite cool. But you all probably don't want to hear much about that. You all probably want to hear about what I thought of the CRJ-200. I thought it was fine. You know, I'm not here to say that it was as nice as the 175. It's the coolest regional jet ever. I had plenty of space to stretch out. None of that's true. I had enough room to not feel claustrophobic, which is a plus. I also had enough room to stretch maybe, I don't know, not quite a foot, but, you know, probably half a foot maybe or so, which is nice. So that was definitely going for it. Overhead bin space on this aircraft is beyond limited. If you're able to get any sort of backpack in the overhead, you've done a good job. I don't even know why they had overhead bins on this aircraft, I guess for purses and whatnot, but in bags probably have got bigger since this aircraft was put into production. If anybody has any thoughts on that, let me know in the comments. But anyway, though, if you don't know, you typically do a valet bag check on the CRJ-200 flights. What that is you'll drop your carry-on bag at the end of the jet bridge. They'll put it under the plane, and then when you land, they'll bring it off the plane and put it at the top of the jet bridge. So kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, definitely really interesting to think about all that. So yeah, this was definitely a really great flight, and I really enjoyed it. Again, not much room to spread out, but you know, seat, I didn't feel claustrophobic. It wasn't particularly comfortable. It also wasn't uncomfortable. I would just say that it was what it was. Pleasant's probably a little bit generous, but you know, it was fine. It was just fine. And that's all the more that it was. So I can't really complain with that. But the views were also cool too. I think we flew over a couple of cool airports, so we'll definitely feature those. But again, you do have some surrounding airports like Milwaukee and Green Bay, and I feel like there's one more up there that I'm forgetting about off the top of my head. But anyway, there's plenty going on. But it was another hazy day, but still plenty going on. Again, not as much room as what you may desire to stretch out, but again, these aircraft are used on very short flights. Chicago to South Bend, Chicago to Green Bay, Chicago to Appleton, Chicago to probably like a Lansing, Michigan, Green Bay, some of those. So I know that there are some other routes in the network too. I think there's like Philadelphia to Dayton. I think they have a couple of other segments that are a little bit longer, but typically you won't find these aircraft flying over, say, an hour and a half, which is great because they really don't need to be flown any longer than that. And then I also flew Chicago to Sioux Falls on the same product as well. That was fine, even though the route ended up being longer. So that was kind of interesting, and we'll see that in an upcoming video. But regardless, getting into the point here with this aircraft, it was fine. It got the job done. There was one more remark that I wanted to make about the CRJ-200, and of course I can't think about it besides the back padding was fine. The legroom was just enough to get by, and again, these aircraft fly really short flights, so there's not too much to worry about in Chicago. Okay, that's what it was. So many of you are probably wondering why American got the CRJ-200 back after they ended up retiring the aircraft in 2020. I recommend checking out AS Aviation's videos for a more comprehensive explanation, but I'll go ahead and give you a brief one. So that was with PSA Airlines back in 2020 when they flew those out of the Charlotte and Washington operations. What happened was American was looking for a supplemental replacement, essentially, or kind of just pretty much just a full-on replacement for the Piedmont 145s at the Chicago operation, because they moved the majority of that operation over to Philadelphia and Charlotte. So what American came up with was the contract with United with Air Wisconsin ended sometime in early 23, maybe late 22, somewhere around there. Anyway, year and a half ago, whatever. And American picked it up with the Air Wisconsin contract. So they started flying these out of Chicago to fulfill that 50-seat aircraft. And again, on really short segments, Appleton, South Bend, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Green Bay, all of these segments that are short enough to where it's reasonable to do that. And obviously, with these aircraft being older, this one 22 years old, for example, there's not really much desire to continue to fly these all around the world. So that's kind of where we're at on that. But anyway, I thought I'd give all that explanation. I probably should have saved some of it for flights coming back, but we'll briefly go into those. But let's go ahead and land at Appleton, and then we'll talk about Oshkosh a little bit on the way back and kind of what to expect from that. So I hope all of you enjoy this. Let's go ahead and touch down. Lansing, Grand Rapids, Green Bay, all these segments that are short enough to where it's reasonable to do that. And obviously, with these aircraft being older, this one 22 years old, for example, there's not really much desire to continue to fly these all around the world. So that's kind of where we're at on that. But anyway, I thought I'd give all that explanation. I probably should have saved some of it for flights coming back, but we'll briefly go into those. But let's go ahead and land at Appleton, and then we'll talk about Oshkosh a little bit on the way back and kind of what to expect from that. So I hope all of you enjoy this. Let's go ahead and touch down. Okay, everybody, so now we're on to Sunday, July 30th, 2023, and we're coming back on the exact same routing. So I'll just expand on it a little bit from a casual perspective now, since obviously we've already done this. I do want to say Appleton Airport is gorgeous. It is really cool, very unique design, especially with the jet bridges that they have and how they're elevated for, they have mainline aircraft for Allegiant Air, who operates a handful of flights. So that's really cool. You can expect a video on Appleton Airport where we'll go more into detail about it, but let's just go ahead and get on our aircraft for our next flight. So this one's going to be November 470 Alpha Whiskey, which is a 19-year-old CRJ-200. This flight should be quite pleasant once again, so let's just go ahead and get on board and see what it's all about, guys. Let's go ahead and do this. Alrighty, everybody, so welcome here. So this is going to be great. Really excited for this, and let's just go ahead and take off after a really pleasant time there pushing back and doing what we do best. Appleton also has a bunch of really cool FBOs and whatnot, by the way, so we'll talk about that more in the airport video, but let's just go ahead and take off and take it on to Chicago here, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So yeah, once again, I really hope all of you enjoyed my assessment on the CRJ-200 and the ERJ-170. It's pretty unique. I was shocked that they were able to get cruise services on both flights, by the way. I forgot to mention that the first time around, which was very impressive. So really happy to see that, and definitely a huge highlight considering how short this flight is. So that was really cool, and that was awesome. So yeah, very short cruise. It was very fun, and Oshkosh was also great. I'm really excited to share some awesome videos on that. I'll talk about those videos during the cruise from Chicago to Tulsa, but yeah, that's pretty much how quick the flight went. Let's just go ahead and get into Chicago here. So not as hazy this time. That's awesome. We were able to see downtown a little bit better, so you can see that with all the skyscrapers, including the tower that has the United Airlines headquarters in it. I did not know the headquarters was a skyscraper till the other day, so always learning, and I recommend that you always learn as well to enhance your knowledge if you're interested. But nevertheless, we're going to land on the north side and have the longest taxi ever. The taxi is going to take longer than the flight. I'll kind of show you what we're talking about here in a minute, but let's just go ahead and land on that north runway, and then you'll see what it's all about. We're also in East Flow today, so we're not going to fly over downtown, but that's okay. It'll get back into details. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what we have coming up after this landing, so I hope all of you enjoy it. Welcome to Chicago O'Hare, everybody. So as you can tell, we have the world's longest taxi after landing on that north runway. So we landed up there, and then we taxied down the east side, and then cut through by the hangars and came all the way back down. Then we passed the parallel runways up there, the next round of them, and then we taxied back towards the east. We went all the way over, and then we did a loop, and then ended up on the hard stand, which I just thought was funny. So if you don't know, Chicago O'Hare is a very, very large operate. Well, all of you know this, but with regards to the gates, it's a very selective system of how it works. It's really challenging to coordinate these gates with how tight the turn times are and how much action's going on, especially during peak time in the summer like it was here on July 30th. With that being said, there was some sort of rolling delay or some sort of issue that prevented us from getting to our gate. So we had to sit for 15 minutes or so. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, we landed way early, which is funny, but we ended up arriving 25 minutes after we started taxiing back to the gate. I think 25 minutes after we landed, which I just thought was funny. But yeah, taxi times are incredible. You were able to see some of those pictures and whatnot, but nevertheless, we were able to finally get to our gate. And this was a little nerve-wracking because after dorking off all that time, and why I mentioned earlier, definitely get a little bit longer of connection at Chicago and Charlotte, particularly the big two, where I'd recommend longer connections on American. Getting back to what we're talking about here, yeah, it goes really quick. So yeah, all that time we kind of blew off taxiing around, kind of ended up owing us, but luckily I was able to get my bag real quick out of the valet. That took an additional 5 minutes, but we docked up there, and I think my flight was just starting boarding when I took this picture right here. So not bad, but I had to get this one. It was too good, and I knew the flight didn't close the door yet. So luckily though, I think this layover was right an hour, maybe a few minutes less, which luckily wasn't costly in this case. It got pretty darn close, but again, the flight was smooth, and we had plenty of etch the time because I thought we were going to arrive early and go straight to the gate usually, and usually that's statistically what happens, but at airports like Chicago, sometimes it doesn't. So anyway though, feeling very fortunate that we were able to get there at a reasonable time, and there were some passengers that were much more stressed out than I was, so I feel bad for them and hope that they were able to make their flights. It feels crazy that that was that long ago now saying that, but I really hope that they were able to. So yeah, that now takes us on to where we are with our final flight, which is going to be this ERJ-170, but crazily enough, same registration, same gate. We're back at L3 to finish this off the right way. This is where we picked up, obviously, where we started with the 170, and now we're going to finish it off right here. So November 764 Delta November is back to take us to Tulsa, which I just thought was so epic. The sequence, but particularly the same gate as well. The same registration was already pretty ironic, but the probability was a little bit higher since they only had 15 of them at this point in time. But the same exact gate, too. I just thought that was absolutely crazy. But anyway, here we go in this ERJ-170. You all know what it is. It's a 14-year-old example of the type. I'm excited to get back on it. We're not going to sit in the same seat this time, though. Also, I sat in seat 12 on the CRJ-200s. I also forgot to mention that, so my apologies. And 5A on the other one because just to change it up a little bit. But yeah, 12F on this ERJ-170, which is actually a green main cabin etched seat, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into all of what's going on here on this ERJ-170. I made it at Group 8. I took a little bit more time than what I wanted to, but anyway, we made it on with no problems. So let's go ahead and push back. We have an awesome sunset with an awesome takeoff to watch. Let's just go ahead and do just that, and then we'll take it on over to Tulsa, and I'll give you a little bit more of a rundown and my final thoughts. Alrighty, everybody, so welcome to this cruise, and man, that sunset, I always am thinking back to it. Like when I think of Chicago, I have some very diverse memories from a variety of experiences during what was going on in my life when I was traveling through O'Hare. but this sunset definitely immediately comes to mind every time I think about any American regional jet taking off out of this airport, and rightfully so, with the thunderstorm cloud down there, plus obviously the light rays. I mean, how can you not think summer? I mean, it's so great. So it's one of my favorites I've ever captured. I need to frame it at some point with the rest of them, but anyway, that aside, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this flight. So it was really great. Sat on the right side obviously for light and was able to capture quite a bit of it, so that was cool. They did a really great in-flight service, and they actually had the Southwest pretzels that they have, or that the pretzels that Southwest has now, on top of normal pretzels and the Biscoff. So that was super impressive. Sometimes you'll luck out, especially last flight of the day, if they're trying to get rid of all of it, if it's expiring or whatever. They got it all done, so they're not expiring, by the way, but they're just being generous. So that was really fun. So really enjoyed that. Let's go ahead and talk about Oshkosh. So it's going to be great. I have a bunch of really exciting videos planned. I know that obviously 2023's event happened a while ago now, but it'll still give you a great rundown of what the event's like. It's a really wonderful time. So we're going to talk about the experience of Oshkosh, and I'll be sure to make various spotting videos from when I was able to spot. I think we'll probably have 3 or 4 of those, maybe 5. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to see what aviation photography at Oshkosh is like. So I'm really excited about that. And as I mentioned, we'll have a video on the Appleton airport. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also leaning towards doing a video on the Oshkosh airport, which obviously is not dead, but it's much less of an operation for 358 days of the year, or whatever it is, 51 weeks of the year. And then there's 1 week of the year where obviously it's a completely different story. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm excited about all these videos. I think they'll be really cool, and definitely check out my Chicago O'Hare Airport video if you didn't get to check it out. I posted it with the last trip, and it's a great airport to fly through. Just you need to know what you're doing to maximize your capabilities there. So it's really great, and I really hope all of you enjoy it. But yeah, the views were incredible. O'Hare's a great place. The memories are real, and this was a great time. So excited to talk about all of what Oshkosh has to offer. But anyway, to utilize these flights, they were the best option and the most convenient, plus the prices were good. So all of that added up to a great experience here to get in Oshkosh. I'm glad it was all reasonable and was able to capitalize on all of this. So with that being said, I really hope all of you enjoyed this cruise session. I'm so excited for what's to come. Let's go ahead and touch it down here on a runway. Let's see, we're going into, that's going to be, sorry, I'm just making sure I get this right here. 18 left is where we landed, I believe, or it was runway 8. It was one of those two. I think it might have been the cross one. Yeah, it was runway 8 here at Tulsa International Airport. So I really hope all of you enjoy it. 26 rather, sorry. Let's go ahead and touch it down, guys. Okay, everyone, I really hope all of you enjoyed this trip report on American's regional jets. It was really cool to cover what they're all about, and I'm really excited for what's to come, and I hope all of you are as well. Stay tuned for all those videos. We have so much to talk about, and more regional jets will be coming up in the future. With that being said, that'll do it for today's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. My name is Redriveraviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Just process. Do you love and love you do. My name is Redriveraviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Redriveraviation is signing off.